So we just arrived in Chile, and we arrived from Cusco, which is approximately 11,000 feet above sea level. And Chile is how much above sea level?
Sea level.
It's like at sea level. Maybe a little, I don't know, but it's significantly lower than Cusco. And there is so much oxygen flowing to my brain right now that I'm freaking out.
Santiago is the capital of Chile, and it's a very vibrant, up-and-coming town with about 6 million people. It sits in a valley between the Andes Mountains, so it has stunning panoramic views of the mountains and of the city itself. It's a great place for foodies and for people who love good wine. It also has a very vibrant nightlife and lots of art all over the place.
I was interested in Santiago, but I kind of admit that it wasn't really like the #1 city on my list that I wanted to visit. We've been renting homes all around the trip, primarily through vrbo.com and homeaway.com.
The apartment wasn't exactly the best apartment for us, and I think that really kind of made Santiago not a great experience, because looking back, there was nothing about Santiago that I hated.
The kitchen was tiny. It literally was as small as my kitchen in Japan when I lived there back in the early 90s. So it did sleep 5, technically. Marco had to sleep on a futon in the living room, and the girls shared a bedroom that literally was just 2 beds.
Across from one of our balconies was another balcony with 2 schnauzers, and they had modified their balcony. They were adorable. 2 little white schnauzers. There was never a park without a dog, and all of them reminded me of Pablo, especially the poodles and the white fluffy dogs. Man, I wanted to steal them from their owners.
Santiago is a very walkable city. That was something else that I liked a lot about it. And there was a lot of parks. Right near our apartment there was this big park that was long and green, and there was also a beautiful hill that was a park as well. And we did a great hike up to the top of this hill with beautiful views of the city from the top. Another place that we went to while in Santiago was Cerro San Cristobal, which is a mountaintop upon which a beautiful statue of the Virgin Mary stands, and you have to take a funicular cable car up to the top of it. And so we decided that we were going to do that one day. We walked through this sort of hip other section of Santiago, and we took this tiny little cable car train up the hill. It was quite fun.
For my birthday in Santiago, we decided to go to an Argentinian restaurant. How ironic. I really wanted to have a typical South American family dinner style. So we found this restaurant that was recommended actually from one of the guidebooks called Sur Patagonia. It was actually really good. Unfortunately, I think most of us were not feeling super good. I think a couple of us were actually sick, but we had some really good wine, and I got to try wild boar for the first time, so that was kind of cool. We did a walking tour of the city. It was about 3 hours long, and we went through part of downtown that has more of the historical buildings. It took about 3 hours, and our guide was actually very knowledgeable of the history and the architecture of the city through the years. We visited the Palazzo La Moneda, which is actually now the presidential palace, and also the financial district that looks just like New York City. It was actually very curious. He told me that the financial district was actually built with the intention of looking like Wall Street, and it did. We ended our tour near our neighborhood that we're staying, the Larista Barrio, at a tiny little tapas place where we had the Chilean version of pisco sour and some empanadas. Every South American country, I guess, has some version of empanada. I have to say that between the Peruvian pisco sour and the Chilean pisco sour, the Peruvian one's still the best. We also visited the house that belonged to Pablo Neruda in Santiago. It's now named La Chascona, that he named after his lover that he lived with for several years. The house was really quite beautiful and very peculiar. It had several different rooms that were decorated differently. I think it's now a museum, and they did an excellent job curating to make sure that it had enough about his private life, but also a little bit about the importance he had in the history of literature in Chile. It was one of my favorite things in Santiago. Driving South America in general is complicated. If you're not used to it, it's a nightmare. One of the issues in Santiago is the way the streets are set up on a grid. It's actually a beautifully urbanized city, you would think it would be very easy to navigate, but it's actually extremely complicated because of the one-way streets. Needless to say that when we finally left Santiago, just trying to return the car to the rental place was a complete nightmare. I think I lost 5 years of my life just trying to get out of that place.
So what's happening right now is Heather, Marco, and I are waiting for my parents to come back with the rental car. And we are waiting in the lobby, and there's so much stuff. We don't actually know if it's all gonna fit in the trunk. I mean, it should. We looked at the trunk and it looked pretty spacious, but... What did you just do?
I just performed a miracle of multiplication of space.
Tetris.
Amazing.
It's a huge trunk, and we managed to fit all of our bags
7
in there.
pieces of luggage in here. That's a couple extra bags.
Woohoo! Like, I wasn't driving, but the cities, like the signs were weird, and there were so many different like one-way streets, and like sometimes the signs were like outdated, and like that's not actually what you were supposed to do on that road. And like north was south. We had to go south at one point, but we kept following the signs to south, but the compass in our car kept saying we were going north, and we were like, what is going on? But yeah, it was super weird. We got lost a lot, and luckily most of us speak passable Spanish, so
Maybe we're in bizarro land where you have to go north to go south.
Things loop around a little bit here. I mean, okay, let's pay attention to those signs because we have to exit somewhere.
Right, we want to take an exit to Colchagua when you can see
Okay,
it.
all right. Al sur, Colchagua.
Baby, we're totally hearing you.
No,
We're
it's just
making the
really
statement
strange,
that
man.
I don't know why this car keeps beeping at us. It probably is saying there's way too much in the back. What is going on?
what are we doing?